Good evening, everybody. Hello, and thanks again for tuning in to another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I'm your host, Nelson E. Brown, and I'm thankful for the fact that you guys have had the opportunity to watch another broadcast and to be here with us this evening. Now, today, this is going to be our second time airing a show, a post Mother's Day show. So Miss Lizbeth Meredith and Miss Tammy Horvath are going to be on the show to talk about their experience as moms. They're going to talk about the work that they do, but they're also going to talk about their experiences as moms. And my mom, Miss Lisa L. Brown, is here again to talk with us about her experience as a mom. She was here last year talking with a different set of ladies, a different group of ladies about her experience as a mom. And it was really, really great to sit down and meet the ladies for the first time and to talk about that and to speak about all of those things, having authentic conversations about motherhood and what it means to, actually be on the journey. It was really, really great to have her on for the first Mother's Day special last year. So we have a lot in store for this evening for the second Mother's Day show. Now, for those of all who don't know my mom, Mom, can you, introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about yourself before Miss Meredith and Miss Horvath hop on?
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here again with you guys. It's always a pleasure to be here. What can I say? Um, what can I say that you guys don't already know? I'm Nelson's mom. It's always a pleasure to say that because he's such a good guy and he's doing so much. He's been an easy son to raise, no problems, no issues. So I've been very blessed um, in that arena. What else can I say? I'm still employed with the federal government. Been there 30 plus years. I enjoy being a public servant. I guess that's been my passion for a long time, and I'm just happy to be here. And I hope you guys enjoy the show, and I hope you continue to support my son in all endeavors that he's doing because I think he's awesome. And I'm not just saying that because he's my son. I'm saying that because I think he is. And what he stands for and what he's trying to do, I admire because it takes a lot. So thank you guys again for tuning in again to see me and see Nelson too and the other ladies. And I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Mom, for sharing that with everyone. And this is for all of the new listeners. Now, this is probably my mom's like third or fourth appearance,
Yeah.
on the show throughout the 2 years. This September, it'll be 2 years
Yeah.
since the show's been on the air, and since I've had the opportunity to actually sit in front of everybody and speak about various topics.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, tonight's topic is a post Mother's Day special. So can you talk to the listeners about what it means to be a mom and what it means to really celebrate Mother's Day. Because again, you know, you know, you're celebrating Mother's Day as a daughter and as a mom.
Right.
So could you talk about that experience, for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
before the other ladies, hop on?
Um, I think about Mother's Day, and not just about me. I think about other mothers, women who want to be moms, women who've lost their moms, women who have a strong desire to do that, women who are in those roles as maternal figures. I think about those women too, and we need to honor them as well. I don't know if there are any Hallmark cards out there to honor those women, but I've had women in my life that have been there and been very supportive and been just like moms to me. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be your birth mom or somebody who carried you for 9 months or anything like that. A mom could be someone who's supportive, someone who respects you, is there for you, cares for you, is the listening ear, just someone who's very supportive. So I just think that being a mom is in is such a awesome calling, and it doesn't have to be from someone who gave birth to you. So I hope that everybody took time out to give someone a call or send a letter or text, or just acknowledge someone who's been in your life and who's been there and who's been supportive, that that has acted as a mom, has acted as that safe haven, that sounding board, someone who's just been there for you and been supportive. So not just your mom, but I hope that all the women have had an opportunity to get a thank you from someone on Sunday. And if you haven't done that, I just ask that you take time out to give someone a call, a text, a letter. Just show them some kindness and let them know they appreciate you, because sometimes people need to hear that. You can't assume all the time that people know that you love them, know that you care about them. Sometimes you need to just say it. Don't text it. Call them up and say, hey, just wanted to let you know I love and I care about you, and I thought about you today, and I just wanted to let you know that. I think that's a kind gesture.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's also important to note that, again, I was looking at some of the sources in terms of like some of the reports that they draft about, how much money people actually spend on Mother's Day, and how extravagant it is compared to, of course, Father's Day.
Right.
So, and this is next to Christmas,
right.
So,
Okay.
I don't have a ballpark figure. I'm gonna have to look into that again. But again, people always celebrate the beauty in moms.
Right.
So could you tell us a little bit about what some of the beauty of being a mom was? I mean, I know you talked about how much of a joy it was, but in terms of like how it's made you a better person, and what have been some of the challenges in terms of being on this journey?
So the first part of your question, say that again.
So what is the beauty? What how do you find the beauty in being a mom? Because
Okay.
you talked a little bit about that, the first few minutes of the show, the beauty in being a mom, my
Right.
mom.
Right.
But how has it made you a better person? And that's my first question. My second question is, what has been the most difficult part of your journey as a mom in terms of um, where you were back then to where you're trying to go to now in terms of yourself, and you as a person, you as a woman, and then you as a mom.
Okay. Well, I think being a mom has shown me some patience, um, some understanding, um, just I've learned to, I think, take time out to enjoy things, because I remember my life before I was a mom versus my life as a mom, and I realized that you go through life. I was working. I probably was working 2 or 3 jobs before I had you. So, I was just working. I never really took time out to really, I did things, but just to enjoy life as far as appreciating the little things. So, being a mom, it's important to appreciate the little things, because if you can't appreciate the little things, the big things are just out of the question. So just being able to grow with you, being able to learn with you, that's been a joy. Having those memories of you, doing different things, the step camp, playing softball, playing soccer, doing gymnastics, um, roller skating, all those things nobody can ever take away. And I was glad to have kind of exhaled and taken time out to um, enjoy those moments with you. And those are things that you can pass along to your children as well.
Yes, absolutely. So since they're waiting in the stream, I'm going to add them to the stream.
Okay.
I would like to introduce everybody to Miss Lizbeth Meredith and Miss Tammy Horvath. They're the guests for this evening. They're the guests for the broadcast. I'm glad that okay, so it should go a three-way. Okay. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to, speak with you ladies. Miss Meredith, this is her second time being on my show. Miss Tammy, this is your first time being a part of my broadcast, to talk about, the beauty in being a mom and your journey. And this is also, like I said, this is Miss Meredith's second time on the show, and she has a story of her own. So before we dive into that conversation, I would like for Miss Tammy to go first and talk a little bit about who you are and the kind of work that you do, so that our listeners can get a better understanding of who you are.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. In 2017, my son was murdered, and in the days and months that followed, I had to face the horror of not only losing my son, but forgiving his killer.
Wow.
The year after my son went home to be with the Lord, God called me to share my story. So I wrote a memoir,
Mhm.
and it's about my journey to love, faith, forgiveness, and renewed hope. And I write and speak so that every person may know God's immeasurable love and that forgiveness is the essence of God's love. And I'm committed to loving the unlovable and forgiving as I have been forgiven.
Ask a question.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Could I just ask a question?
Oh, sure.
I just wonder how difficult was it for you to forgive? I mean, because I know it's something you're supposed to do, but how
Right.
difficult was that for you to do? I mean, did it just come to you, or was it a process?
Oddly enough, it was harder for me to forgive myself for the things
Mm.
I needed to forgive myself for than for forgiving the stranger who killed my son.
Wow.
I
Wow.
struggled more with that.
Did you feel like that you were missing something, or you didn't do something? Well, why do you feel that way? I'm just
I
curious.
I felt slightly responsible for not, like, when your child gets murdered, you feel like if you would have had more control or not let him go where he went, not that I could control him. He was 19 years old. He was an
Mm-hmm.
adult, but he
Mm-hmm.
still lived at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then you question everything you did bringing them up, you know, what mistakes did I make? If I would have did this or that, would it have turned out differently?
Okay, I understand that. I'm sorry, I just was curious.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like I said, we're having a conversation about all of your experiences as moms. But like I said, all three of you ladies have your own journeys and your own stories that the
Mm-hmm.
listeners now have an opportunity to hear about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what is the, of course, that's something that I can't imagine going through.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your journey like as a mom? Watching your son grow up and become a young man. What's the beauty in all of that for you on your journey? What are some of the things? What are some of the joys of that?
It was wonderful sharing in all of his good moments and his accomplishments, and just that feeling of celebrating with him, because there wasn't too much with my son to celebrate. So we
Mm-hmm.
celebrated even the littlest things.
Right.
He had a lot of emotional, mental, psychological issues, and 6 psychologists, counselors said not to bring him back. They could not help him.
Wow.
So I was really stuck. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to do, but you know, when he would come to me and ask for my advice, and he listened to my words of wisdom sometimes he didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but it just felt so good to know that he loved me and wanted my help.
Mm-hmm. 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 So I'm just curious, what kind of things do you do um to just kind of remember him in a good light? So I know some people may celebrate birthdays, or they say, well, the anniversary of their death. Do you do things like that, or do you just try to keep it private?
I do all of it. I usually buy an ice cream cake, and it's a good excuse to go off a diet.
Right.
And I'll write on it happy heavenly birthday or happy birthday. And I also have every picture I have of my son that was professionally taken. They are all over my walls.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room left on my walls.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
every room I walk into, his face is there.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I know that you wanted to share a little bit about your book that you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
About that whole experience. And I did have a chance to visit your website and read like a synopsis about the book. So what can some readers and some of the people who are listening now, what can they expect if they pick up if they pick up your book and they read your story, what can they learn about in terms of what your journey has been like through that moment and through that experience, and also moving forward? What can they expect?
Well, I share my story and what went wrong with me with my parents raising me, which I apparently did the same thing with my son.
Mhm.
So I share the mistakes I made as a parent, but I also show Bible verses and share how I came to forgive my son's killer.
Mhm.
And I explain how other people can come to do that too. Because I've had a lot of people tell me, if you could forgive a cold blooded murderer, then I should be able to forgive so and so. And
Mhm.
they've bought my book and they said it really helped them learn to forgive. And there's also steps for dealing with grief
Mhm.
and PTSD. I've added some of that because I didn't realize till a couple years ago that I had been codependent all my life.
Mhm.
So there's a little of that in there too. And just, I'm trying to help people.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, and that's really good. And any parent who's actually lost a son or daughter, or who may be in the same circumstance, can definitely identify with your story in terms of you being authentic, and you being you being transparent about your journey, beauty, as well as the struggles that you may have experienced. I think that's what people need to hear about, because people, again, they need to hear your story, because like I said, people may be going through the same circumstance, and everybody needs to hear that. So what are some of the, before I go to Miss Meredith, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what are some of the things that you would say to a mom who's lost their son, or a parent who's lost their child to um to because of a homicide, or because of gun violence, or anything as such. What would you say to them? If they're going through that, because again, you you may not think clearly. Excuse me. You may not think clearly in that moment in terms of
Mhm.
the feelings that you have, but
Right.
when you look back on it, you can definitely learn more about it, in terms of how to move forward. So what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, forgiveness is a choice.
Mhm.
It's an action, and you may have to do it over and over again, but you first have to choose to forgive.
Right.
I use the example in my book of trying to steer a boat. And when you have an anchor in place, you must first lift the anchor before you can try to steer in any direction. So
Mhm.
after you choose to forgive, then it's important. You might slip back into unforgiveness. So, it might be a daily thing that you have to do. But
Mhm.
I believe God requires us to forgive as he has forgiven us for our sins. And that's what he expects from us.
Yeah.
That's why I forgave my son's killer.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you, Miss Tammy, for sharing your
Yeah.
story. And thank you for being transparent about your journey.
Hmm.
And I know that you're helping someone right now by
Yeah.
sharing your story and by being authentic about it. And where can people order copies of your book that you've written? Where can they find it?
Well, it's in tons of stores, but the easiest place, I have several links on my website at tammyhorvath.com.
Okay. Well, thanks again for sharing your story.
Yeah, that was good.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Lizbeth Meredith. She's here listening. This is going to be her second time actually, appearing on my show. It's been a while. It's since
Yeah.
like 2020. I think
Yeah.
like the very beginning of the pandemic. She was on my show,
That's
and
right.
she was a part of my broadcast. But now, like, I've invited her back on to talk about her journey as a mom, and to share with the ladies about what her experience has been like. So, Miss Meredith, can you tell the new listeners and the audience a little bit about yourself, and why you do the work that you do?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad to meet your mother. What a
Hello.
joy. Hello. This is such an honor to be here. So when you and I first met, Mr. Brown, I was a retiring juvenile probation supervisor. So I'd done that for a couple of decades. And I've relocated since to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Wow.
Today I was substitute teaching. I still write and do a lot of speaking events. I teach a couple of courses online and do a little bit of coaching as well. And I still hear from a lot of survivors of domestic abuse and international child kidnapping. And that's what my memoir was detailing, was the years that my children were missing and the process that it took to bring them from a foreign country back home.
Yes, absolutely. Before we talk a little bit, I know you have some. You shared with me some of your upcoming events in terms of like what you have, the type of projects you have in the works. So could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a mom? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about your journey last time, as a probation officer and a domestic violence survivor and advocate. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a mom through all of this? Because
Sure.
you've been able to use your experience in order to cultivate a passion and in order to build a successful career out of it. But could you tell us a little bit about how it's been for you as a mom, going through what you've gone through and also taking that experience and using it in order to help others in their journeys?
Right. Excuse me, I feel like becoming a mom was my first sense of mission. It was the first time in my life when I had my daughters that I felt like, wow, there is purpose in my life. There is, I could see a future. I had a sense of agency that I never had before. And they were, and maybe unhealthily so at times, but they became my everything. And I had a friend who once said to me, when you have a child, it will be the worst and the best thing that ever happened to you all at once. And I think that sums it right up. I think it's wonderful when things go well. And I think there are other times where you'll never know heartache or angst like parenting. But, I remember our early years when the kids and I lived, we stayed in a shelter for domestic abuse victims. Then we got onto Section 8 housing when I was first becoming a survivor of domestic abuse. And even then, even though those were rough times, I felt vulnerable. I still felt like here were two little people that I needed to show up for the best that I absolutely could in a way that had never been modeled. And I think writing a book before before I've lost my memory entirely, but writing a book, that was part of the legacy I wanted to leave them, was to be really authentic and say, I wish that I would have done the heavy lifting to create a different future for my daughters than the childhood that I had grown up in, because there was a lot of chaos, abuse, domestic abuse, and a parental child kidnapping when I grew up. And I remember thinking, I've got this, I will do so much better. But I didn't do any of the work that was around that. And so, years later, looking for my children in a foreign country, I still to this day, my daughters are amazing and they're in their 30s, but they have a lot of scar tissue from their early childhood experiences. And frankly, the person that I married, and it was my choice to do so, and then when I left, they lived with the consequences. And so, there's still that mom guilt. And, I love them and we have lots of fun together now. And sometimes the dysfunction in our relationship, especially when it comes to mothering, hovering, I hover too much. I have a lot of anxiety about letting go, but I'm learning. I'm trying really hard to give less input and less unsolicited advice, and to just have faith that they will be all right, that everything's going to turn out all right. And, I wouldn't trade them for anything. I've tried, but just kidding, just kidding. But, I love them to pieces, and it is truly one of the best things that ever happened. But it is real. I think Mother's Day is a very emotional day for a lot of us moms. And whether their kids have been kidnapped or passed away, or you're just having a rough time as a mom, or maybe feeling forgotten for all the things that you tried to do, but maybe didn't turn out as well as we hoped. I've never heard from more friends and some people I didn't know very well as this last Mother's Day. Just this sort of emotional rawness. And so we want to celebrate our children and the role, but acknowledge that it comes with a lot. It's a lot of dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because my next question that I was going to ask was, why is Mother's Day crucial to you? And you kind of already answered it. So, what are some of the joys? Well, before you became a mom, what was life like for you? Uh, and how has being a mom made you a better person? Because in the beginning of the show, I asked my mom, because of course, before you become a mom, you're a woman first. So could you talk a little bit about how you were, before, well, pre-motherhood versus, where you are now in terms of the growth that you've seen in yourself as a person, throughout this journey? How have you matured in that area? I think that's the kind of question I want
It's
to
a
ask.
great question. And do you want me to go first, or which one are
Um,
you?
either or.
Miss Tammy, do you want to do this?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I think before I had children, I had no real strong sense of identity. I was still looking. I mean, I wished that I knew who I was, but if you had asked me, what do you like to do for fun? Or what are your passions? Or what are your convictions? I couldn't really have told you because I was still kind of a young person. And, I didn't have a strong sense of self, but children did give me a backbone. I learned to say things. Sometimes it's necessary to speak your truth. And I learned to be able to speak up. And it was knowing my children where I realized, it wasn't just that they didn't deserve to grow up in a household watching abuse, but actually, I didn't deserve it either. And, I started getting some strength because that role was so important. And if I don't bring my best as a mom, for all of us, this is true. If we don't take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
then we can't bring our best. And it's tragic because children really are everything for the future. So I think that's something that I have learned and really appreciated about them.
Yes, that's nice. Miss Tammy, could you kind of bounce off of that? What is your experience like, as a woman before becoming a mom? Could you tell us a little bit about that, in terms of, where you started on your journey and where you are now?
I felt empty. I felt like something was missing. And then once I had my son, I felt like I had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
He just gave me a reason to live.
Mm-hmm.
And my first husband was not the best husband. He was a great dad. But when my son was 1 year old, my first husband died in a fiery car crash.
Oh, wow.
So I became a single mother. And I struggled. But then my son was murdered at 19, but I still wouldn't change it. It made me into the person I am. It made me stronger. I feel like I've helped so many people just because I'm still alive. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't succumb to my horrible thoughts,
Right.
but people have reached out to me and I'm able to help them. So being a mom, just gave me a purpose. And now that purpose is to help anybody else that's struggling with anything that I have felt that I can help them with.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my next question, I guess, I guess this sums everything up. Well, I'm not sure. Could you repeat your answer from the beginning of the show? Because I don't think
It
we're
might
there.
change.
Okay.
I can't remember from 1 minute to the next.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
But you could talk about how your experience was. You could talk about how your experience was as a woman before becoming a mom.
Well, what I was telling him is that I felt like you guys kind of felt like you had more of a purpose, because before I was just kind of going through the motions, going to work, just work, work, work. I was doing things, but I really don't think I really had a purpose. And then once I had him, my goals started to change. Things I wanted to achieve, things that I wanted to do. Not to say that I didn't have goals, but they were just different goals.
Right.
So he kind of kept me on the straight and narrow, as they say, and it helped me grow as a person because I know that someone else was looking at me for everything,
Yes.
So it's like, because he would ask me questions and I wouldn't know. He said, "Well, mommy, but you know everything." I said, "I know everything." So I just realized that my purpose and me being not so, I was never selfish, but it was still having to think about another person, just everything, everything. You couldn't even really think about what you wanted to do because you had to make sure this little person was taken care of. So, did
I
I
love
say
it.
that earlier?
Yes, you did. Yes, yes, you said the same thing.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, before my son was murdered, I was so careful, even driving a car. I never did anything dangerous.
Mm,
But now that he's gone, he was my only child. So
okay.
now that he's in heaven, I'm not
Mm,
scared to do things like I
mm.
was before. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, because I would always I would always pray that I could live long enough so he could be an adult because I
Right.
didn't want to not be here.
Right.
Right.
Like you're saying, like it was the fear of not being here. Like,
Right.
who's going to take care of him? Nobody's going to treat him like I treat him.
Yep.
I got my will together. I had to make sure, the right people, I can't have that person, oh no, So it was like I was always in a crisis mode, sort of, kind of, because I was
I know.
always thinking about what if,
Yep.
you know. And so now I think about it, but I feel like he's grown into a young man that can take care of himself, So
Yes.
I always was afraid of leaving him by himself to fend for himself. So that was
Okay.
one of my biggest fears. And my sister used to always say, don't talk like that. You're not going anywhere. Don't talk like that. But I said sometimes you had to have those conversations, even though people don't like to have those conversations.
Right.
They're very important because you leave your child here and they don't know. They're scrambling trying to figure out what to do. And at least I wanted him to be able to be self-sufficient, take care of himself and do what he needs to do to sustain. So yeah, I can understand that totally. Just on edge all the time. All the time on edge. Even when he learned how to drive, I was like busy.
Yes.
He was like, he say, "Mommy, are you okay?" No, I'm not okay. So it's like everything. It's like you're always in panic mode because you want to be there to save them. You want to be there to help them. You don't want them to have to go through anything unnecessarily. Like you want to protect them from everything. So, I understand how you feel, Miss Tammy, when you say that because I really feel for you. I can't imagine because he's my only son. And I remember when an incident happened and he was, kidnapped and all of that. And your whole world just for that second is woo, it's something. So I really commend you for being able to forgive and move on and be willing to help someone because people say it all the time,
Right.
Oh yeah, but when it actually happens, are you going to really be able to forgive that person? Are you really going to be able to look at that person and say, I truly forgive you for what you've done and really mean it? So I commend you for being able to do that because honestly, I don't know if I would be able to do that. I mean, I'm just being honest. I really commend you for being able to be that woman because I'm still growing and learning because wow, I really do commend you. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
It is.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you guys have had this conversation. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you guys had a conversation this entire time about your experience as moms, but could you guys talk a little bit about like the relationships with your moms in terms of, how you, in some way or another, you may see your mom and yourself,
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. So
Y'all have to close the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Right.
So,
I gotta take water break.
Yes.
Sorry, y'all.
so could you guys talk a little bit about your relationships with your moms, and how you may see some of your your mom and yourself in one way or another? So, because anybody can start.
Should we pick a coin or?
I,
Yes.
my mom and I are a lot alike. Her mom physically and mentally abused her growing up. She used to bang her brother's head off the wall. So when my mom had me, she was very young and she didn't know how to parent. And it was hard. I hated living at home. I actually ran away when I was 15 and hitchhiked several states away. I just hated it that bad. I wanted out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day I turned 18, I moved out of the house. And my dad's an alcoholic, so he was rarely home. But I was daddy's little girl,
Mm-hmm.
probably because I never got to see him and he spoiled me when he was around. But over the years, my mother has changed so much, and we are so close now. And we can talk about what she did wrong, and we can talk about how I followed in her footsteps and did the same things with my son. And I did try to do better with my son than she did with me, but I didn't really have anybody to show me how. So I wasn't very successful.
But I'm glad that thank you for sharing that. I definitely appreciate it. And like I said, we're all helping someone right now with this conversation.
Right.
So Miss Meredith, how about you?
I loved hearing that, because I just think if you have a mom that can acknowledge, I am so, hey, this was imperfect, or wow, that was really rough, and I'm sorry about these certain things. There's just so much hope in that relationship. So my mom never quite reached that at all, but I would say that there are things about my mother, and it is a Mother's Day show, and I don't want to it's not to try to rag on my mother, but there are things about my mother that I definitely admire in some ways. Like I feel like one thing that this conversation, I mean, I want to celebrate motherhood, but it is not for everyone. I will just say that I also would celebrate our children who decide not to have children, because it's definitely not for everyone.
That's true.
And in my mother's generation, I feel like children were her currency, and she didn't have an education. She had no money. She had not a family situation to rely on. And so in her generation, it became a way to kind of attach and have a house and have a future. And so she did that a number of, she was married more than a couple of times, but parenting was not something she liked. And I don't think she meant not to like it. I don't think we always know that about ourselves, but she really, really, really did not enjoy parenting. It was hard, but I think she was very bright and had lots of career aspirations that in today's world, a woman could follow without too much scrutiny. But as a woman from the South, a woman from her generation, so many different things going. She had 6 children, 5 within 4.5 years, the first 5. And when you think about then different marriages, it was a rough thing for her. And so I appreciate that. I can appreciate that as an older woman now. And especially as I wrote about her, I thought, wow, look at the different things that she had to face that made it so hard. But she wasn't someone who would ever say, hey, that was my bad about hurting you guys physically really, really badly, or sorry that I left you when you were very, very young, or threw you out and didn't come back. So those conversations didn't open up for healing in that way, but still forgiveness is something that a person can pursue. I don't have to have my mother make a huge change for me to be able to say, I can see there were some challenges. I think there was mental health. I think there was a generational. I think that she loathed being a mother. And I think that I can have compassion for that and not open myself up to be mistreated again and again and again by her. But on the other hand, I can definitely appreciate that that was difficult and that she's smart and she has value. And, I have some great siblings. I just met my last one a few years ago doing a book event. So I met him in Louisville, Kentucky when I lived in Alaska. So, that was kind of neat. And I think she had some neat kids.
Yes, I thank you for sharing that as well. So, Mommy, could you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that experience?
Well, I guess my experience may be a little different because I grew up in foster care. So I was with the same family since I was like 8 days old. So didn't know anything different until I was 13.
Wow.
So I changed, they didn't change, but I can say that my mom instilled in me how important it was for me as a woman to be independent
Yes.
because she was pretty much taken care of. She was one of, back then they were called day workers and day laborers and things like that. She didn't really get a formal education. So she wanted me to be independent and educated.
I love it.
So I think that that's where that has been ingrained in my head forever. So that is why I push that on him so much. Even as a man, you have to be independent. You have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to make these decisions. So I think that was the most crucial thing that she um just instilled in me. She wasn't always the kind of person who would say, like I tell my son several times a day, I love you. I give him hugs, I give him kisses. I never want to leave this earth and let him think that, I wonder if my mother really loved me. And I
Yeah.
know my mom loved me, but in those days, born in the 60s, things were different. And it was kind of like, I love you. Why do I have to say that all the time? You didn't see a lot of affection and, a lot of hugging and, so that thing is what I tried to change with the relationship I had. When the people call him a mama's boy, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with it, and neither does he, because I want him to know how much I love him and um, not ever try to. How can I say it? If he decides to get married and have a wife, I want him to know what it is to love somebody and not try to look for that in a woman. Like he knows who he is as a man. He knows that his mom loves. I don't want him to be lacking. I guess I got that across the way I needed to, you know what I mean? Because like sometimes as women, we look for love in the wrong place because we feel like, we missed it from our dad or something like that. I just want him to be able to respect women and treat a woman the way she needs to be treated. So I feel like for most guys, their first love is their mom. And, he loves his mom. So I feel like any young lady that's out there, I'm going to put it out there, don't be embarrassed.
Oh boy.
You should consider yourself lucky to have him because he's a great guy. And I'm not saying that because he's my son. I'm saying it because he is. So anybody who ends up being Mrs. Nelson E. Brown, oh, I'm going to be so excited. Is the show over?
No. No,
Okay.
yeah, but I thank you all for sharing that, and I appreciate each and every one of you talking about your experience because all of you guys are on a journey.
Yeah.
You guys have different paths, but you guys are all on a journey.
Yeah.
And that's what is recognized right in this moment. As we have the show. My last question would be because I know that every woman doesn't have children.
Right.
So what advice would you give to women who say that maybe being a mom is not for me because the world likes to look down on women who don't have children.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give them or what would you say to them to make them feel better about themselves, because people oftentimes associate being a mom with being a woman with being a mom. So what would you say to women who just may say that it's just not for me? I'm not responsible enough, or it's just, I'm just not willing to be unselfish.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to them?
Are you waiting for me, Lizbeth?
You can do it. You can do it, and I will jump in too.
If you don't want to be a mom and you're not ready to give up your freedom and put in the time and commitment to be a good mother, the best mother to that child, and not be selfish, you need to give to your child first. And if you can't do that, don't do it.
Right.
That child can't go through life not having a great mom.
Yeah.
They deserve it.
That's good.
Yes.
And we celebrate that people can decide and know themselves. If they get old enough that they know themselves and they say, that experience just isn't for me. That's beautiful. I celebrate that. And, I have 2 daughters in their 30s. Neither have become a mother yet. I think one talks occasionally about adopting someday. But as much as I love, and I do love little children, and I always thought I'd be a grandmother, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I would say to women who decide that they don't want to have kids, or if they can't have kids, either way, they make such a huge impact in the world around them regardless. And they certainly have much to offer children, and children are still our future. And so for all of us, but I may never be a grandmother, that's fine, but I'm still going to invest in the children of the future. And there is room for all of us at the table to make a contribution, but we do not have to be mothers anymore if we choose not to be. And that's okay too. That's really something. And if we choose to be moms, that's wonderful. And, I think that both deserve a celebration. I wouldn't have changed my choices. I feel like Tammy does, that like I wouldn't look at it any other way. It's delightful. I did a very imperfect job. I really did. Very imperfect. And I'm thankful that I have the relationship with my daughters who are outspoken. And, when there's something they need to heal that I did wrong, they will come to me and say, there's this thing that you said back in this time, and it still hurts. And I don't know if you even know that. And my daughter and I just had this conversation a couple months ago, and I had no idea. And it was very important because that's how we invest in our relationships, is letting people know, if I've hurt you, I'm really sorry. So, I celebrate my kids, but my imperfect job, I even celebrate that a little bit. But there's room for all of us at the table. We all make a contribution to that next generation, and always will.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say, if you don't want to have children, don't do it. Because, it's no rain check. You can't, there's no receipt. You can't take it back. It's like, what it is what it is. So if you don't want children, don't have children. But as women, we shouldn't feel less than women if we decide not to do that.
Correct.
And people shouldn't make women feel guilty because they don't have children.
Correct.
To me, that is a strong person to be able to stand up and say, hey, you know what? I don't want any kids. You don't have to give me an explanation, because I understand it is hard work.
Right.
You don't get to take off,
Right.
you have to be there. You have to be involved. It's, I don't think that I've had a good night's sleep since March 14th, 1999, when he was born, because I'm always half asleep. What's that? What's going on? Who's at the door? Are you okay? I haven't had a good night's sleep since.
Right.
So it's like, and he'll be 23. So I'm just saying, when I forget what I'm doing, is because I'm tired. I haven't been sleeping.
Right.
So it's just, if you really don't want children, don't have children. It's a lifetime commitment. They're always going to be your children. No matter what happens, they're always going to be your children. So you can't say, woo, I'll be glad when you turn 18 and get out of here, or you turn 21. You may look up and they 42 and they coming through the door. Hopefully they ring the doorbell first and they don't still have a key. But I mean, so, you know, if you don't want to have children, it's okay. It's other ways that you can give. You can volunteer, you can substitute teach, you can coach, you can mentor, you can help a kid learn how to read, write. I mean, there's so many other ways that you can give back that you don't have to commit fully, you know, your whole being to being a parent 24/7 if that's not what you want to do. It's okay. And women need to know that it's okay. They need to know that. You're still going to check that box.
That's right.
All day.
Yes. Yes. Well, before we wrap up the show, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to just share any last minute thoughts or any upcoming events or projects that you're working on. You know, you guys are free to share it, you know, before we, you know, close out the show. I know that Ms. Meredith, you had some projects that are coming up. So could you talk to us about that? And Ms. Tammy, you'll have an opportunity to talk about it if you have any upcoming projects too.
Sure. Thank you so much. Now, if anyone wants to find out more, they can find me at my site at lameredith.com. And that's where I talk about when I'm about to teach an online course. I have an email list that runs through it. I definitely podcast on Wednesdays at Persistence U with Lizbeth, U being like university. And I have 2 more manuscripts written, but they are still works in progress. And I continue to do a lot of speaking events. And I'm going to slow down a little bit soon, just because I need to enjoy life a little bit and, you know, kind of nurture my cats. So that's make sure that they're growing up in that right way. But that's it. But no, it is a joy to see you both together and to see Tammy. It's just wonderful to spend time with you all. And thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. I should also say, Tammy pointed out to me that the movie that's based on my book is it's re-premiering on Lifetime Television on May 19th, called Stolen by Their Father. So that's fun. It's on Amazon Prime, but it's also on Lifetime Television. That's where it originally premiered, and it'll re-premiere May 19th, she said. So thank you, Miss Tammy.
Oh, thank you. I'll be looking out for that. I love Lifetime.
You do?
Yeah.
Yes, I love a good movie. Yes.
It's a sign that you did not have a happy life. So
check on that too.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Tammy, do you have any last minute thoughts? Anything you want to share?
Well, I watched the movie and I can recommend it. It's excellent. But what I'm doing right now is I'm blogging on my website to try to help people with messages I feel God inspires me to share. And I'm speaking in churches. And possibly in the future, I may add prisons, universities, wherever God leads me and opens the doors.
Yes. Well, thank you, ladies, again for taking time out to appear on the show, and me for meeting my mom for the first time.
Meeting you, ladies.
Yes.
So glad to know you.
Very nice meeting you, ladies.
Miss Lisa Brown. Yes. So this is your first time meeting her. I'm glad you guys had a chance to talk about your journeys and you guys as moms. I definitely I know that the listeners definitely benefited from this discussion, and they definitely had a chance to learn from all of you guys.
Yes.
So before I close out the show, I want to thank you all again, and I'll definitely keep in touch. And I'm going to check the movie out too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe we'll check it out together.
Maybe
you and with your mom, right?
Yes.
So
the depressing
exciting.
Mother's Day movie.
Check that box, right?
Yes.
Check that box. So exciting.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for the conversation.
It's been fun. Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you, ladies.
Nice
You
to
too.
meet you.
Yeah, keep up the good work.
Yes.
Thank you. You as well. And thank you,
you.
Mr. Brown. You did such a great, I love your show. So thank you.
Yes, and thanks again. I'm gonna let you guys go, and we're gonna close out with some announcements for the show.
Okay.
So I'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, take
Okay.
care.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
blessed
Stay
night.
inspired.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.
So that wraps up another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I'm glad you guys had a chance to really sit down and actually hear each of these ladies and learn about their stories. Each and every one of them had a testimony to share, and each and every one of them are still on the journey. And each and every one of them have learned something along the way. And I hope that you all have felt inspired and uplifted by tonight's discussion. So few announcements.
Sorry, I'm sorry, everybody. Someone's at our door.
Yes, but just to let you guys know, on Saturday, May 14th, I'm going to be attending a Grad Fest event, and I'm definitely going to have an opportunity.
Sorry, yes. I'm sorry, guys. This is so unprofessional.
Yes, but like I was saying, I'm going to be attending a Grad Fest event on Saturday, May 14th, and it's also my birthday, so I'll be 23 years old. It's very exciting to attend a Grad Fest event. I'm wrapping up my studies at UMBC, and I'm having the chance to participate in 2 commencement ceremonies this year. It's been a hassle trying to get everything together, but I definitely plan on making memories for 2022.
Yeah.
In 2020, I had a very, very rough time. With the pandemic and with all of what I was going through with my health related issues and all of the other obstacles that were in my way. And last year, I was still trying to bounce back and recuperate. But now I feel like 2022, this is my year to really bounce back and create memories. Finishing up my studies and I still participate in extracurricular activities. I'll be celebrating 2 years being a part of AGR's family and with having my broadcasts, and I'm still meeting amazing people, so many amazing people, throughout the course of me doing this show. So again, I love you all and I appreciate you all. So next week, I may air a previous show. I'm trying to RSVP for an event with delegate Stephanie Smith. If you all remember her, she was a part of my broadcast in the very beginning back in 2020 when we talked about the natural hair movement and about the Crown Act. Delegate Stephanie Smith, she represents District 45 in the Maryland House of Delegates. So I'm planning to attend an event next week. I'm still waiting to hear back from the person who is supposed to supposed to RSVP guests for the event. So I may be attending her event next week. So you may or may not have a new show. But if you guys don't have a new show, I will definitely post another show, a previous show, and a previous broadcast to the link, so you'll be able to watch it again, for your convenience. But we're going to be having a delegate, Brooke Learman, for May 24th, Tuesday, May 24th, from 6 to 7 p.m. And she's going to be talking about her work in the Maryland General Assembly and her campaign for Maryland State Comptroller. So this is the Beauty in Us Radio, right here on Awesome God Radio. I am Nelson E. Brown. I look forward to seeing you all next week or the week after. Make sure that you subscribe to us on all of the social media platforms at awesomeguideradio.com. And don't forget to follow my work at Nelson E. Brown on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook and LinkedIn at Nelson Brown. I love you all. I appreciate each and every one of you, and you take care.
Take care. Good seeing you guys.